Hi everybody, I'm Grahtles and welcome to a new episode of City Skylines. This is New Brighton, and if you're new to my channel and you don't know what I do Let's Plays, tutorials, tips, tricks on City Skylines, and I play a couple other games as well. And in the last episode we put in this mountain over here for a nature reserve park and ran our train through it. We also moved our cargo station and set up all the cargo train lines for that. And in today's episode we're going to continue on with the nature reserve park. This will probably be a couple of episodes because I had a lot to do. I did add a water feature to the front. I also will be letting the game run during some of this, and that's to help it level up as well as to see how everything functions. And there's so many trees I want to fill in and stuff, so it is going to be probably at least 2 parts, maybe 3. So let's go ahead and start getting into it. First thing we're going to do is paths. You could put the gate in first, but for me, I was like, I needed to run a lot of paths. So I just started with paths. You don't need the painted area in order to run paths, so it doesn't really matter. You can use basically any path you want. So I just come in and I just start running them around the mountain and trying to get the best natural look as possible. I don't want it too steep, I want it to kind of go gradually up the hill or mountain, whatever you want to call it. And I also want the paths to make bridges as well as paths. So this way when you're going around, when you do have a steep part, you can use the bridge to get across, which I think looks pretty cool. You can have decently sized steep inclines. It is a nature reserve park, and in real life, when you go to nature reserve parks, they do have some steep climbing to do. So I thought, that's fine as long as it's not unnatural where it looks to the point where it's vertical and it's nowhere possible you can actually climb this path. So recording this footage took probably well over an hour and a half, and I did try to speed it up to like 8 times speed, and it was too fast for 1, and for 2, it was just way too much footage. It still had like 25 minutes to the whole thing. So I did edit out quite a bit. It was just necessary. So my best advice is just kind of eyeball it for 1. For 2, use your terrain tools. Leveling and also the incline works pretty well. And then smoothing it out helps a little bit. Smoothing, though, you got to be careful. It starts smoothing towards the sides. So your mountain starts looking more like a hill. So yeah, you got to be really careful with that. I did go all the way up to the top of this mountain. That changes because it does not look natural. I also used like the first person and walk the path myself, and it's alright if you can't see to past the top of the hill. In real life, I've walked hills where I couldn't see past the top of the hill. So as long as it's gradually going up, but also steep enough that it is like a challenge, you do want these like challenges to come around into these nature reserves. And we're gonna have campgrounds, so if they get tired, they can stay the night. So now as I'm coming down with the paths towards the front of where the main gate will be, I just kind of elevate a lot of this up. It was very flat still. And we do have the cemetery off to the side, and I thought instead of running fences all the way around so people can't get in without paying, I would just kind of put a lot of these steeper sides to it, and I think it works. So we don't have to run this fence all the way around. So next I just come in and I just go along the beach here. So another piece of advice I would give you is when you're on doing these DLC packs and like parks and stuff, you get quite a bit of assets, but you have to unlock them. So as you level up, they unlock different things. So with the nature reserve, you actually get a hunting cabin, a fishing cabin, and stuff like that. So these are all things that you want to keep in mind when building, because obviously if you have a fishing cabin, you want to put it by the water. You have to put it by the water. And if you have a hunting cabin, you're going to want some dense forest and trees. So you really want to keep all this in mind, that it's not just a campground for just camping. You can actually use it for hunting and fishing. And that's why you want to add all the elements that work for that, like water and a pretty dense forest. So unfortunately, a lot of the paths that I'm running in here are going to get deleted because I end up making a water feature down the side of the mountain in the front here. And you may be wondering why keep the footage in if everything's going to be deleted in the front. Well, not everything's going to be deleted in the front. With keeping the paths there and showing you how I ran the paths in the front, it helps me to show you that you're better off doing that, so this way you still get your inclines pretty good, because even though I'm going to delete a lot of the middle, I ended up making these side paths, which are the ones that do get kept, and they actually function to get around the mountain from the front. So now we are finally ready for our main gate, and I put it in and I connect it up to the existing path, and next I'm just going to put in the fence. So I do turn off the snapping for this. It works better for me for some reason. When it snaps to the road, it sometimes doesn't do the curves that you need. So when you're working with curves, it's kind of difficult unless you turn the snapping off, especially when you have roads that aren't perfectly straight. So I just run the fence there, and then I kind of look at it and I'm like, you know, this is kind of steep. I can make it a little steeper, so this way people don't sneak in. And with doing that, I don't have to run the fence all the way across. I could just kind of stop at the cemetery. The only problem is you have to watch, because you start changing the incline on your cemetery, and you don't want that. You want that to be really level. So yeah, I'm just kind of fixing that up a little bit, and then I go back and I just start adding it to the front here a little bit as well. I kind of like the way it looks kind of hidden behind this steep little incline in the front, and so I left that and I added to it. So as you can see, I do get a little steep with this, and I just get the smooth tool out and I level out a little bit of it just so it's not so sharp, and I just kind of come in and I'm just filling in a little bit. So next we're just going to add our paint. Now we do get a painted spot with the gate, and we take that off of there, and once we get that, we just continue all the way around the whole mountain just to get the whole area covered. I do come off the edge just a bit because I know I'm going to put fishing cabins by the water. So in this next part, I'm just running in the tents and the campfires in a couple of different spaces. Now, like I said, you do have many assets that get unlocked later on, and they include campsites and lookout towers, as well as the cabins, like I said before. And so I'm just kind of randomly placing some of these tents and the campfires in different areas. So now this footage is sped up quite a bit. It's more than the rest of the video before and after, and that is just simply because I'm just randomly placing tents and campfires that may not even stay in later on. I may change them out, but yeah, it's something that I didn't think needed to be on the slower pace. So here's where I start to feel like I want to have a waterfall coming down, and in order to do this, I have to change up my paths in the front here, so this way they connect from the front to the back, off to the sides, and not down the middle. So I just quickly switch some of this out and delete the path in the middle. This wasn't easy because some of it was quite steep, so I really did have to play with the elevation quite a bit. Again, I did a lot of editing because it was unnecessary and getting quite boring. And then I get started on the waterfall. So here I start working on the waterfall, and I'm starting from the top and working my way down, and I'm kind of notching it out almost like a canal, but in a vertical sense instead of a horizontal sense. And then I come down to the bottom and I go pretty deep, playing around with where I want to put it, how deep I want to go, and where I want it to end, and the surrounding land. So here I just add the water, the fresh water outlet, and then I'm just building up around the back of it. Now you can't come up and over it to hide it, so I kind of put a bunch of trees in there, and it does do a good job at hiding it. So here I just connect it up to the water and wait for the water to run out, and it does need electric. So for now, I just use one of the windmills. It was just convenient for now. Maybe later on I'll see if I can find a better solution than having the windmill up on the hill, but I put it down so you don't really notice it as much. So now I'm thinking to myself, I don't really want to maintain this because it could overflow and then dry up. So it wouldn't dry up, but it would definitely overflow. So I'm thinking of an outlet. So this way it would have a way to get the water out. So this way it wouldn't overfill and then come over into our paths and onto the beach. And so I decided to make just a small little outlet over here and a pedestrian bridge that goes across, and that seemed to work. And now I did play with this quite a bit because I wanted the center to be deep enough for the water to flow out, but I also needed the sides because I wanted it quite narrow. So every time I kind of filled it in, it was filling in the middle as well. So that took a little bit of time and challenge to get that done, but it worked. Here I needed to make a new pathway with an incline because I wanted to come up the side here, and I got rid of the other path that was in the middle. So there I just come across, and now I'm just making this connect right here. So here I'm just adding stuff that looks like algae and some rocks, and just to make it look really natural and pretty. And yeah. Outside and some rocks and all different types of things just to make it look really good and fill it in a little bit. Now I didn't want to put trees on the edge on the beach side, and I do want to add the fishing cabins over there, so I am going to probably have to move some of those rocks in the front. But like I said, I'm kind of deleting and adding, and I'm kind of working with it as I go along, and sometimes I see things that I didn't see before, or I want to add things that I didn't have before. So for the water feature, I definitely tried to keep the 8-speed off, but when it came to doing the trees, it was just so much that I had to do because it was basically placing each tree down one at a time. And so this took forever because I was basically placing them one by one. But as you can see, it looks better when it's densely filled. I was looking at a couple of images, aerial views of some nature reserve parks, and I noticed like they are just covered in trees. Like when you look from an aerial view, all you see is green because these trees are so cluttered together. And that's kind of the way I want to make this, and that's why I'm going to have to make it in so many different parts, because I have the water part now, and then I'm going to be working more and more adding the trees and making small adjustments along the way. So as you can see, I'm just spreading around a couple of these little bushes. I didn't want anything too high on the beach level. And then I just place a couple of the bigger bushes throughout. And those are really nice. They're nice and green. And then I think I come in and I add a couple of the pink bushes. Just for a little color over here. I think they look good. I do put these rocks, but I think I do delete them at a later time because I am working, I think, on the second episode right now. And yeah, so I just put these pink ones in here. So I do know as I'm filming the second and third parts right now, I do make a few changes, but that you'll see in the next episodes. So here's an overview of the water feature we put in for the Nature Reserve Park. This is, like I said, part 1 of a few parts. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. It did take a lot of time, but it was worth it. I think it looks good, and I think it'll look really great when we could put our fishing cabins in and the rest of the mountain is filled out. I think the paths came out pretty good, and I do make a few adjustments in the later episodes, but you'll see that. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. So if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, and click the notification button so this way you get notified when my next episodes are out. So thank you. Bye.